Captain Jake Morrison stood at the big window of his ship, the UES Defiance. Outside, space was black and full of stars. But today was different. Today, a huge alien ship was coming toward them. It was 3 times bigger than any human ship ever. Built 3 months ago, humans met aliens for the first time. The aliens called themselves the Zalari. They had blue skin and 4 arms. At first, everyone on Earth was scared. Then the Zalari said they came in peace. They wanted to invite humans to something called the Galactic Council. Jake had been in space for 10 years. He had seen many things, but nothing like this. The alien ship looked like a giant crystal floating in space. It had no sharp edges, just smooth curves that caught the light from nearby stars. "Captain," said his second officer, Lieutenant Ben Clark, "the Zalari ship is asking permission to dock." "Let them come," Jake said. He was nervous but tried not to show it. This was the most important day in human history. Dr. Lisa Carter was already waiting in the docking bay. She was Earth's best expert on aliens, even though she had never met one before 3 months ago. She was chosen to represent all humans at the Galactic Council. It was a big job for one person. The Zalari ambassador came out of his ship. His name was Vexthal, and he was tall and thin. His blue skin seemed to glow a little in the ship's lights. He had 4 arms and big black eyes that looked kind but also very old. "Dr. Carter," Vexthal said in perfect English. The Zalari had learned human languages very quickly. "Are you ready to see the galaxy as it really is?" Lisa nodded. She had studied everything the Zalari had told them about the Galactic Council. 12 different alien races ruled the galaxy together. They had been doing this for over 10,000 years. Humans were babies compared to them. "The Council has agreed to let you watch their meetings," Vexthal explained as they walked through the ship. "But you must understand, your species is very young. The Council members are ancient and wise. They have seen the rise and fall of many civilizations." The Zalari ship was amazing inside. Everything was smooth and clean. The walls seemed to glow with their own light. There were no sharp corners anywhere. It felt more like being inside a living thing than a machine. "How long will it take to reach the Council station?" Lisa asked. 2 weeks through our hyperspace paths," Vexthal replied. "The station is called Nexus Prime. It is larger than your moon." Lisa tried to imagine something that big built by thinking beings. Earth's biggest space station could hold 1,000 people. How many millions could live on something the size of the moon? During the trip, Vexthal taught Lisa about the 12 council races. The Vorthic Empire built the best machines in the galaxy. Half their bodies were replaced with metal and computers. The Mindari Collective were beings made of pure thought energy. The Kregan Dominion were warriors who looked like giant lizards with 4 arms. "Each race brings something special to the Council," Vexthal explained. "The Vorthic bring technology. The Mindari bring wisdom. The Kregan bring strength. What do humans bring?" Lisa thought about that question for days. What made humans special? They were not the smartest or the strongest. Their technology was primitive compared to the Council races. But there had to be something, or the Council would not have invited them. When they finally arrived at Nexus Prime, Lisa gasped. The station was huge beyond belief. It looked like a small metal planet with millions of lights. Ships from all over. The galaxy came and went like insects around a bright lamp. "Welcome to the center of galactic civilization," Vexthal said. The inside of the station was even more amazing. The main corridor was so big that clouds formed near the ceiling. Different. Aliens walked, floated, or crawled past them. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Lisa could not tell which end was the head. The council chamber was a giant round room with seats for thousands. At the center was a raised platform where the 12 council members sat. Each one looked different and strange in their own way. Council Prime Zentar of the Vorthek Empire was more machine than living being. His voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. The Mindari representative was a ball of glowing energy inside a crystal container. The Kregan delegate was huge, with scales and claws that could probably cut through steel. Lisa was given a seat in the observer section. She was told to watch and learn, but not to speak unless asked a direct question. The first few days were boring. The council talked about trade routes and mining rights. They discussed which planets could join the council and which were not. Ready, yet. Lisa began to see how the council worked. They were careful and slow. Every decision was talked about for hours or days. They seemed to have all the time in the world. When you live for thousands of years, what was the hurry? Then everything changed. On the fourth day, Council Prime Zentar stood up. His metal parts gleamed under the chamber lights. "We have received terrible news from the Outer Rim," he announced. "A new threat has appeared. They call themselves the Devourers." The chamber became very quiet. Lisa could feel the fear from thousands of alien beings around her. "3 of our member worlds have been destroyed," Zentar continued. "Not conquered. Not invaded? Destroyed? The planets are gone. Nothing remains but empty space and debris." Images appeared in the air above the council platform. Lisa saw recordings from the attack systems. The Devourers were unlike anything she had ever imagined. They were not just ships, but living things the size of cities. They moved through space like giant sea creatures swimming through water. "They do not want to talk," said the Mindari representative. Its thoughts translated into words that everyone could understand. "They do not want territory or resources. They want to consume everything. They eat planets like we eat food." Lisa watched the recordings with growing horror. The Devourer ships, if they could be called ships, surrounded planets and began to break them apart. They sucked up the pieces like a person drinking through a straw. In hours, entire worlds were gone. "How many of them are there?" asked the delegate from the Therian Republic. "Unknown," Zentar replied. "Our scouts estimate hundreds of thousands of the smaller ones, perhaps thousands of the large ones, and they are coming toward the core systems." The debate that followed showed Lisa something she had not expected. For all their wisdom and age, the council races were scared. They had not fought a real war. In thousands of years, their ships were built to keep peace, not to fight an enemy that wanted to destroy everything. "We must evacuate the outer colonies," suggested one delegate. "We should try to communicate with them," said another. "We need to build more defensive stations," argued a third. But Lisa could see the truth that none of them wanted to admit. They were not ready for this kind of enemy. They had forgotten how to fight for their lives. As she sat in her observer seat, listening to increasingly desperate ideas, Lisa realized something important. Maybe humans did have something to offer after. Oh, something the galaxy had forgotten during its long peace. Humans knew how to fight when everything seemed hopeless. They knew how to win when winning seemed impossible. They had never known the luxury of 10,000 years of peace, for the first time since arriving at Nexus Prime. Lisa Carter smiled. She was beginning to understand what humans could bring to the Galactic Council. 3 days passed since the Council learned about the Devourer threat. Lisa Carter sat in her small room on Nexus Prime, staring at her computer screen. She had been reading reports and watching battle recordings for hours. The more she learned, the more worried she became. The Devourers were not like any enemy the galaxy had ever seen. They did not want land or treasure. They did not care about power or glory. They only wanted to eat. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid. They consumed everything and left nothing behind. Lisa thought about her home on Earth. She pictured her sister Kate playing with her children in the backyard. She thought about the billions of humans who had no idea that creatures from across the galaxy wanted to devour their world. But she also thought about something else. She remembered reading about human wars throughout history. Humans had always been good at fighting when they had to. Not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The next morning, Lisa made a decision that would change everything. She put on her best dress uniform and walked to the council chamber. The session had already started. Thousands of aliens filled the huge room, all talking about the Devourer crisis. Lisa stood up in the observer section. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady. "Council Prime Zentar," she called out. I request permission to address this assembly. The chamber became silent. Every alien eye, antenna, and sensor turned to look at her. Observer species never spoke during council sessions. It had never happened before in 10,000 years. Zentar's mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. The human representative wishes to speak? This is most unusual. Some of the council members made sounds that Lisa guessed were laughter. The Zelari delegate shook his head sadly. The Mindari representative sent out thoughts that felt like someone patting a child on the head, but the Kregan delegate, a huge warrior named Thane, growled with interest. Let the human speak. I want to hear what she has to say. Lisa walked down to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. Her legs felt weak, but she kept moving. She knew this was humanity's only chance to prove they belonged among the stars, honored counselors, Lisa began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. You face an enemy unlike any in your history. The Devourers do not want to negotiate. They do not want your territory or your resources. They want extinction, yours and everyone else's. She activated her personal computer and displayed images. In the air above the platform, the images showed human soldiers, human battles, human wars. Humanity may be young compared to your species, Lisa continued, but we have one thing you have forgotten. We remember how to fight for our lives. In our short history, we have fought over 7,000 wars. We have learned how to survive, when survival seems impossible. General Zexamore of the Vorthek Empire leaned forward. Half his face was metal and his mechanical eye focused on Lisa. You speak of war as if it were knowledge. Explain this. Lisa felt more confident now. This was what she had prepared for. Every human child learns about something we call asymmetric warfare. How to fight an enemy that is bigger than you, stronger than you, or has better weapons than you. We know how to win when we should lose. She showed tactical diagrams that made even the Kregan warriors pay attention. More importantly, we understand something your peaceful civilization may have forgotten. Sometimes staying alive requires making choices that civilized people do not want to make. Admiral Sarah Mitchell was watching from Earth through a quantum communication link. She held her breath as Lisa continued. This was humanity's chance. And they all knew it. The Devourers are effective because they follow patterns, Lisa explained. They consume, they move on, they consume again. But patterns create weaknesses. They expect resistance to follow certain rules. The kind of resistance that a peaceful, established civilization would offer. She activated her final display. It showed a battle plan that Earth's military leaders had been working on for weeks. They do not expect the kind of resistance that a species fighting for its very existence would offer. They do not expect humans. The chamber erupted in noise. Some council members were angry at her boldness. Others seemed interested despite themselves. But it was Councillor Thane who asked the question that mattered most. What exactly are you proposing, human? Lisa took a deep breath. Everything depended on her next words. Give us ships. Give us access to your technology. Give us 6 months to prepare, and we will show you how to fight an enemy that wants to devour the galaxy. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Then Council Prime Zentar spoke, his mechanical voice careful and neutral. You would have us trust our most advanced military technology to a species that has not even achieved basic space travel on their own? You would have us trust a species whose own planet is still divided into competing nations? Added the Mindari representative. Lisa had expected these questions. Yes, she said simply. Because we are the only ones here who remember how to be desperate. And desperation, counselors, is the most powerful weapon in the universe. She gestured to the images of human conflict still floating in the air. Look at our history. We have fought wars with sticks and stones. We have fought wars with machines that could destroy our entire planet. We have fought each other for thousands of years. And we are still here. We know how to survive. The Thurian delegate, a being that looked like a giant flower, rustled its petals nervously. But what makes you think you can defeat an enemy that has destroyed entire star systems? Because they have never fought humans before, Lisa replied. They have conquered civilized species. Species that fight by rules. Species that value their own lives more than victory. Humans are different. She paused, looking around the chamber at thousands of alien faces. When a human is cornered, when everything seems lost, we do not surrender, we do not run away. We find a way to hurt our enemy, even if it kills us, especially if it kills us. The debate that followed lasted for 2 full days. Council members argued about the risks of giving advanced technology to such a young species. They worried about what humans might do with weapons that could destroy planets, but the devourer threat was real and growing closer every day. More scout reports came in showing the alien swarm moving toward the core worlds. Time was running out. Finally, Council Pranzentar called for a vote. All in favor of granting the human proposal? One by one, the council members cast their votes. Some voted yes because they were desperate. Others voted yes because they were curious. A few voted yes because they had nothing left to lose. When the counting was finished, the proposal had passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would be given limited access to council technology and a small test fleet. They had 6 months to prove that their theories about warfare could work against the devourer threat. Lisa Carter felt tears running down her face as she realized what had just happened. Humanity had been given a chance to save the galaxy. It was more than she had dared hope for, and exactly what the military leaders on Earth had been praying for. As she left the council chamber, Councillor Thane approached her, the huge Kregan warrior looked down at her with what might have been respect. "Human," he growled, "I hope you know what you have done. You have just volunteered your entire species for the most dangerous mission in galactic history." Lisa looked up at him and smiled. "Sir, with respect, that is exactly what humans do best." The age of human warfare among the stars was about to begin. The Terran War College was built in space near Mars in just 30 days. Admiral John Parker stood on the command deck, watching hundreds of human ships arriving from Earth 6 months ago. The biggest threat Earth faced was space pirates stealing cargo ships. Now they were preparing to fight monsters that ate entire planets. Admiral Parker was 55 years old and had spent his whole life in space. He had fought pirates, stopped smugglers, and kept peace between the Earth colonies. But nothing had prepared him for this. He was now in charge of humanity's first war against aliens. The technology the Council gave them was amazing beyond belief. Dr. Helen Torres led the team trying to understand it all. She worked 20 hours a day with scientists from around the world. The alien energy weapons were more powerful than anything humans had ever built. The armor systems could stop weapons that would destroy a city. The propulsion technology could move ships faster than light itself. The Council species have had this technology for thousands of years, Dr. Torres explained to Admiral Parker during one of their daily meetings. They use it the same way their ancestors did. But if we combine their power with human ideas about fighting, that quotes, she showed him diagrams of new weapon designs. Human engineers were taking alien technology and making it work in ways the aliens had never thought of. They were smaller, faster, and more dangerous than anything the galaxy had seen before. Meanwhile, Colonel Steve Hamilton was training the strangest army in human history. Over 2 million people had volunteered to fight the Devourers in the first week alone. They came from every country on Earth and every human colony in space, but Hamilton was not just looking for soldiers. He was looking for people who could think in new ways, people who could solve problems that had never existed before. "We are not trying to be stronger than the Devourers," Hamilton told his training teams. "We are not trying to have more ships than them. We are trying to be smarter than them." Every person in this program needs to understand that we win by being unpredictable. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. A Devourer scout fleet was detected moving toward the Kepler mining colonies. 3 star systems that provided rare metals to half the galaxy were about to be attacked. The Council's plan was simple and predictable. Evacuate all the people from the colonies. Set up defensive positions around the planets. Fight the Devourers. When they arrived and hoped to hold them off long enough for reinforcements to come, Admiral Parker had a different idea. "We do not defend the colonies," he announced during the Joint Command meeting. The Council military advisors stared at him in shock. Some of them made angry noises. "We let the Devourers approach the colonies, then we attack them from behind." General Zexamore of the Vorthek Empire was the first to object. His mechanical voice was cold with disapproval. "You would sacrifice 3 entire star systems for a tactical advantage?" "I would sacrifice empty star systems for a strategic advantage," Parker corrected. "We evacuate every living being from those colonies first. Then we use the empty planets. As bait, the Devourers expect us to defend fixed positions because that is what civilized species do. They do not expect us to turn their own habits against them." The plan was bold beyond anything the Council had ever attempted. 3 human tasks. Forces would hide in the asteroid fields at the edge of each system. Each force had ships that combined Council technology with human tactics. When the Devourers moved in to consume the apparently defenseless colonies, the human forces would attack from 3 different directions at once, Captain Lisa Stone commanded. The first task force aboard the UES Relentless. She was 32 years old and had never commanded anything bigger than a patrol ship before the war started. Now she had 20 ships under her command and the fate of 3 star systems in her hands. As she watched the Devourer fleet approach the first colony world, she felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her. This was not just about proving human military ideas worked. This was about earning humanity's right to exist among the stars. "Contact in 30 seconds, reported Lieutenant Dan Murphy from the weapons station. "All ships report ready for attack." The Devourer fleet moved with mechanical precision. The alien bioships were each the size of a small city. They approached the mining platforms with the confidence of predators that had never faced real resistance. Captain Stone watched through her ship's sensors as the massive alien vessels moved into position around the colony world. They began extending, feeding tubes toward the planet's surface, preparing to consume everything on it. "Wait for it," Captain Stone whispered to herself, watching as the alien ships moved into the perfect position. "Wait for it. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Devourer scout ships at the back of their formation simply disappeared. The human ships had been drifting through space on momentum alone, using alien stealth technology to avoid detection. Now they were in perfect firing positions. "All ships begin Ghost Protocol," Stone ordered over the communication system. What happened next was unlike any battle the galaxy had seen in thousands of years. The human task forces did not engage in the long-range shooting matches that the Council species preferred. Instead, they closed to point-blank range, using their smaller size and better maneuvering to devastating effect. The human ships moved like fighters instead of warships. They dove between the massive Devourer vessels, firing weapons that had been designed by combining human creativity with alien power. They targeted weak points that Council military doctrine said were impossible to hit. The Devourers had never faced an enemy like this before. They were used to fighting species that valued their own lives, species that retreated when the battle turned against them, species that surrendered when defeat seemed certain. Humans did none of these things. When Lieutenant Commander Amy Collins realized her ship's weapons had failed, she rammed her vessel directly into a Devourer bioship's feeding tube. The explosion tore a hole in the alien vessel that vented atmosphere and biofluid into space. When Captain Rick Turner's ship was surrounded by enemy vessels, he ejected in an escape pod and manually detonated his ship's power core. The blast took out 2 Devourer ships and damaged 3 others. When the UES Defiant lost all power and was being pulled into a Devourer ship's feeding mouth, the crew rigged the ship's remaining fuel as an explosive device. Sergeant Julie Brooks volunteered to stay behind and trigger it manually. "If we are going to die anyway," she radioed to the other ships, "let us make it count." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the entire Devourer scout fleet had been destroyed. Not a single alien ship escaped to report back to their main force. The 3 colony worlds were saved, and the galaxy had witnessed something it had never seen before, but the cost was terrible. Humanity lost 60% of their ships and nearly 3,000 volunteers. The lucky ones died quickly when their ships exploded. Others died slowly in the cold vacuum of space when their life support failed. Admiral Parker's report to the Council was brief and to the point. Mission accomplished. The enemy now knows that this galaxy contains something they have not faced before. We have proven that the Devourer advance can be stopped. Request permission to proceed to the next phase of operations. The response from the Council came within hours. For the first time in their 10,000-year history, a request from an observer species was approved unanimously and without debate. Humanity had proven they could fight the Devourers. Now they had to prove they could win a war against them. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler, the galaxy looked completely different. The Council chambers on Nexus Prime buzzed with constant activity as species that had barely spoken to each other for centuries now worked together. At the center of it all stood Admiral John Parker, now wearing the uniform of Supreme Allied Commander. It was a rank that had been created just for him. Human military ideas had spread through the Allied forces like wildfire. Captain Rick Turner commanded a mixed squadron of human Krigan and Vorthak ships. His team had just returned from a dangerous mission deep in Devourer-controlled space. His report to the Joint Command showed how effective the human way of fighting had become. "We hit their supply convoy at 0300 hours ship time," Turner reported to the assembled commanders. His uniform still had burn marks from the recent battle. The Krigan ships provided heavy firepower while the Vorthak vessels jammed their communications. The human ships coordinated the attack and provided what we call creative problem-solving. General Zexamore leaned forward with interest. The Vorthak warrior had learned to respect human tactics over the past months. "Explain this creative problem-solving." Turner grinned. "Well, sir, when our regular weapons could not penetrate their transport ship's armor, Sergeant Amy Collins suggested we use our remaining fuel as a bomb. Her exact words were, 'If we are going to die anyway, we might as well take them with us.'" Dr. Helen Torres had become the galaxy's leading expert on adaptive warfare technology. Her latest invention was causing excitement throughout Council space. She had created weapon systems that learned and changed during battle, based on human ideas about adapting to survive. The Devourers have always won because they are predictable, but overwhelming, she explained to a group of Council scientists. But we have built weapons that become more unpredictable the longer they fight. Each battle teaches them new ways to be effective. But it was not just technology that was changing. The human concept of total war had revolutionized how the Council species approached the conflict. Total war meant that entire civilizations focused all their energy on fighting the enemy. Commander Julie Brooks oversaw the transformation of the peaceful Mindari worlds into military production centers. The psychic species had never considered that their mental abilities could be used for warfare. Human tacticians showed them possibilities they had never imagined. Psychological warfare is not about attacking the enemy's mind directly, Brooks explained to a group of Mindari volunteers. It is about making them doubt themselves. The Devourers believe they cannot be stopped. Our job is to prove them wrong. The results were dramatic. Devourer fleets that had swept through Council space with unstoppable force suddenly found themselves facing enemies that fought in ways their hive mind could not understand or counter. Human-trained forces used tactics that seemed to make no sense. They retreated when they were winning. They attacked when retreat seemed like the only option. They turned defensive positions into offensive weapons. Admiral Sarah Mitchell arrived from Earth with the second wave of human forces. She brought with her something that shocked even the most experienced Council veterans. She carried weapons designs that had been created by children on Earth. A 10-year-old girl named Katie sent us this design, Mitchell explained, holding up what looked like a simple wooden puzzle box. She said it reminded her of the Devourer ships we showed on the news broadcasts. It took our engineers 3 weeks to figure out how her design could disrupt their communication networks. The Battle of Centauri Nexus became the turning point of the war. The Devourers had assembled their largest fleet yet. Over 1,000 bioships were moving toward the Council Core worlds. If they broke through, billions of beings would die. The Allied response was coordinated by human strategic planning but carried out by the combined forces of all 12 Council species working together. Captain Mark Wilson led the diversionary attack that drew the main Devourer fleet into a nebula where Council forces were waiting. But the real breakthrough came from Lieutenant Colonel Janet Ellis. Her unit had spent months studying Devourer biology using captured specimens. "They are not just a hive mind," Ellis reported during the pre-battle briefing. "They are a network. And every network has critical control points. We have identified 17 ships in their fleet that serve as command centers. If we destroy those ships, the rest become nothing more than mindless animals." The battle lasted 18 hours. It was fought across an entire star system, with millions of ships engaging in combat on a scale that had never been seen before. Human tactics were used by alien cruise flying ships, built by species that had been enemies for thousands of years. When the battle was over, the Devourer fleet had not just been defeated. It had been completely destroyed. More importantly, some of the enemy had been captured alive. This had never been accomplished before. Under questioning, the captured Devourers revealed something that terrified even the most experienced Council members. They were not the main threat. They were scouts, preparing the galaxy for something much worse. "The Swarm Mother comes," the captured bio-entities repeated in their high voice. "The Swarm Mother comes and all life ends." Intelligence reports began coming in from long-range scouts. The approaching threat was beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. A structure the size of a small moon was moving toward Council space. It was surrounded by millions of Devourer ships. Worse, it appeared to be a mobile factory, capable of turning entire star systems into more Devourer forces. Admiral Parker stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council. His face was grim as he delivered the intelligence briefing. "Counselors, we have won every battle so far because we fought an enemy that underestimated us. But what is coming next will not make that mistake." The holographic displays showed the approaching Swarm Mother in all its terrible glory. It was not just a ship or a space station. It was a living entity that had consumed countless worlds to grow to its current size. "The good news," Parker continued, "is that we have proven human military doctrine works against this enemy. We have trained your forces to fight in ways the Devourers cannot predict. The bad news is that everything we have faced so far has been practice. The real war is about to begin." Dr. Torres stepped forward with her final report. "Our analysis suggests that conventional weapons will not be effective against the Swarm Mother. Its defenses are too strong, and it can regenerate damage faster than we can inflict it." She activated a holographic display that showed her most ambitious project yet. "However, we have developed what we call the Prometheus Protocol. It is a strategy that could destroy the Swarm Mother, but the cost—" She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. "The cost would be unprecedented. We would need to sacrifice an entire star system to create a weapon powerful enough to destroy it." The chamber erupted in shocked voices and concerned chittering from dozens of different species. The idea of deliberately destroying a star was beyond anything they had ever considered, but Admiral Parker stood calm in the center of the chaos. "Counselors," he said, his voice cutting through the noise, "Dr. Torres is correct. The Prometheus Protocol would require the sacrifice of volunteers who would not survive the mission. But it may be our only chance to save the galaxy." For the first time since the crisis began, even the ancient council members looked uncertain. They had grown comfortable with their long peace. The idea of such a desperate gamble was terrifying to them, but humanity had given them something they had lost over their millennia of peace. They had remembered how to fight for their survival with everything they had. The Swarm Mother was coming, but it would find a galaxy that had learned to show its teeth. The final battle took place at the edge of Council space in a system that had been empty for 6 months. The swarm mother hung in the darkness like a mechanical planet. Its surface crawled with millions of devourer ships. Long-range scans showed the terrible truth. It was not just a ship. It was a living factory that could turn entire star systems into more devourer forces. Admiral John Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Victory, the largest ship humanity had ever built. Around him, the combined Allied fleet represented the military power of 13 different species united under human leadership. It should have been a moment of victory. Instead, it felt like they were all flying to their deaths. "What are our chances?" Parker asked his aide, Commander Lisa Stone. "Using normal tactics, we have a 12% chance of winning," Stone reported, reading from her datapad. "Best case scenario, we might damage it enough to slow it down for a few months." "And the special option?" Stone hesitated. She did not want to say the words. "Captain Torres believes her plan could work, but the cost would be terrible." Dr. Helen Torres had spent 3 months developing what she called the Prometheus Protocol. It was a plan so desperate that even human military leaders had called it insane when they first heard it. The plan required something no civilization in galactic history had ever tried. They would sacrifice an entire star system to create a weapon. "Show me the plan one more time," Parker ordered. The holographic display showed the simple and terrifying beauty of humanity's final gambit. 50 human ships, each equipped with stellar manipulation technology taken from ancient council archives, would fly directly into the system's star. The controlled explosion would create a temporary wormhole, not for travel, but for weaponization. "We turn the star into a gun," Torres explained to the assembled fleet commanders. "One shot aimed directly at the swarm mother's core. The energy release will equal 100 exploding stars focused into a beam 10 meters wide." General Zexamore of the Vorthek Empire asked the question everyone was thinking. "The volunteers flying those ships ... will not survive the approach." Parker finished. "We know, they volunteered anyway." Captain Kevin Reynolds would lead the Prometheus Squadron. He was 28 years old and had a wife and 2 children back on Earth. His final message was recorded for broadcast to every world in Council space. "This is what humans do," he said, looking directly into the camera. "When the universe tells us something is impossible, we do it anyway. Not because we are brave, but because someone has to do it, and we are too stubborn to quit." The battle began with the largest space fight in galactic history. Council forces, fighting with human tactics, engaged the devourer swarms across the entire star system. It was chaos beyond imagination. Millions of ships fought with weapons that could destroy planets. Strategies that had never been tested were used on a massive scale. Admiral Sarah Mitchell commanded the left side of the battle, using Kriegan heavy ships in patterns that even their own warriors had never imagined. "The Devourers are trying to form a protective shell around the swarm mother," she reported over the command channel. "They are learning from our previous battles." But humanity had one advantage the enemy could not copy. They could adapt faster than their opponents could learn. Every time the Devourers developed a counter to human tactics, human commanders found a counter to the counter. Colonel Steve Hamilton led a desperate attack on the swarm mother's outer defenses. His mixed force of human and alien ships fought with the kind of fearless courage that had become humanity's trademark in the war. They bought precious time for the Prometheus Squadron to reach the star. "Reynolds is approaching the stellar envelope," reported the communications officer. "Prometheus Squadron is ready for final approach." Captain Reynolds and his 50 volunteers flew their ships toward the heart of a star. Their final radio transmissions cut off as the stellar manipulation devices activated. For 17 seconds, nothing happened. The battle continued to rage around the system. The swarm mother's defenses held against everything the Allied forces could throw at them. Then the star exploded. It was not the natural explosion of a dying star, but something far more controlled and infinitely more powerful. The stellar matter was channeled through dimensional tiers, focused through technologies that pushed the limits of physics. and aimed with precision that should have been impossible. The beam struck the swarm mother in its exact center, the entity that had devoured 1,000 worlds, that had seemed unstoppable in its mechanical hunger, simply ceased to exist. The energy release was so massive that ships at the edge of the system were damaged by the radiation. The devourer swarms, suddenly cut off from their controlling intelligence, began attacking each other in confusion. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and scientists tried to understand what they had witnessed, Admiral Parker received a message from Earth. It was from Katie, the 10-year-old girl whose toy design had helped earlier in the war. "Dear Admiral Parker," the message read, "my teacher says you won the war against the monsters. Thank you for keeping us safe. I made you a new toy. It is a puzzle that looks like a peace treaty. I hope you like it." The final session of the Galactic Council about the Devourer War was held on Earth. For the first time in Council history, the assembled representatives met on the home world of an observer species. Leaders from across the galaxy came to the small blue planet that had saved them all. Council Prime Zentar stood before the assembly in the newly built United Nations Space Center. His mechanical voice carried an unusual note of warmth. The Council recognizes humanity not as observers but as full members with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, we establish the Reynolds Doctrine. Sometimes the preservation of life requires those willing to sacrifice everything for it. Lisa Carter, now bearing the title of Earth's first Galactic Counselor, accepted on behalf of humanity. But her speech focused not on victory or recognition, but on the 50 volunteers who had flown into a star to save the galaxy. "We did not win this war because we were stronger or smarter than our enemies," she said. "We won because we remembered something the galaxy had forgotten. Civilization is not a right to be claimed, but a responsibility to be protected." The heroes of Prometheus Squadron did not die for humanity. They died for the idea that all life, everywhere, deserves a chance to grow and flourish. In the years that followed, human military academies were established on every council world. The principles of adaptive warfare, surprise tactics, and the strategic use of desperate courage became standard teaching throughout galactic civilization, but perhaps the most important legacy was simpler. The galaxy had learned to fight for itself again. When the next threat emerged, and there would always be a next threat, they would be ready, because humanity had taught them the most valuable lesson in the universe. Sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to remember how to make war. The age of humanity among the stars had begun not with exploration or diplomacy, but with the willingness to fly into a star to protect strangers they had never met. It was, the historians would write, the most human thing they could have done. Years later, children across the galaxy would learn about the day humanity walked into the Galactic Council with war following behind them. They would learn about ordinary people who did extraordinary things because someone had to. And they would understand that sometimes the greatest victories come not from being the strongest or the smartest, but from being too stubborn to give up when everything seems lost. The Devourers were gone, but their memory served a purpose. They reminded the galaxy that peace must be protected, that civilization must be defended, and that sometimes the youngest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. Humanity had earned their place among the stars, not through conquest, but through sacrifice, not through superiority, but through the simple recognition that all life was worth fighting for, even if the fight cost everything.